Dickie Dredd, The New Age Travellers, A History, 1960 to 1990. Chapter 3. The Convoy Starts to Form. Life on site. For travellers in the late 1970s and 80s, life on site was shaped by freedom, improvisation and often confrontation. The era saw a surge in mobile communities seeking alternative ways of living, rejecting mainstream consumer culture and settling, however temporarily, on pieces of unused or common land. You did not need much, just a stretch of land tucked out of sight, maybe by a stream if you were lucky. It could be a disused quarry, a forgotten airfield, a clearing near the woods, or a verge on the edge of a bypass. Word travelled fast through whispers and windscreen notes. Good spot near Avesbury, or wasteland free, bring water. Then the convoy would roll in. Rusty old vans, hand-painted school buses, converted horse boxes and battered Bedfords, all wheezing and rattling, engines held together with rope and hope. We would circle up tight, fires lit before the engines and even cooled. Breaking a sight meant moving fast, get in, get set, and settle down before the law caught wind. Living on site was about what you had and what you could make of it. Mornings began with smoke and the smell of wood burners, boots soaked from dew, kettles rattling on recycled gas stoves. We would gather kindling, check water barrels, tend to the dogs and see who was coming to town for a brew run, the term used for pretty much any town visit to the shops. Cooking was mostly communal, big pots of lentils, split peas, rice, vegetables from skips, or gifted by locals, and even a stew made from roadkill. If you had food, you shared it. A tarp slung between wagons became a kitchen. An old oil drum became a stove. If it rained, we cooked, under ponchos or not at all. You learned to adapt. Children ran barefoot, muddy and bright-eyed, wrapped in layers of wool and love. Everyone helped raise them. Teenagers learned to fix vans before they could legally drive them. We patched things up with gaffer tape, fencing wire and sheer willpower. Each site had its own pulse. Dogs barking, engines coughing, someone banging a drum, someone else fixing a puncture or carving a pendant from a bone. In the evenings the fires would glow, the kettles would whistle and the stories would begin. Tales of old festivals, wild roads, near misses and long nights. Music was constant. Fiddles, guitars, spoons, harmonicas, didgeridoos, and the deep voices singing against the winds. Someone always had a spliff, someone had sage to burn. There were nights of laughter and dancing, and mornings that felt like dreams. Craftwork sustained many. Wire-wrapped stones, leatherwork, dream catchers. We traded what we made, what we found, what we grew. Busking and blagging filled the gaps. Nobody got rich, but nobody went without. It was not all romantic. Winters were long and wet, with clothes frozen solid and sleeping bags soaked through. Sanitation was poor. Showers were rare. The smell of diesel, damp dogs and wood smoke became part of us. Arguments flared. Things got lost. Things got stolen. Evictions were always looming. One day you would be sharing soap and stories. The next morning the blue lights would come crawling over the hill. Bailiffs, councilmen, riot vans. They did not care if there were babies asleep in the wagon or chickens loose on the field. Move on or else. And so we moved, again and again. For many, life on the road wasn't a political act. It was simply childhood. Kids of the traveller movement in the 1970s and 1980s grew up in a world of mud, music, smoke and stars, where the classroom was often a field, a forest or the back of a bus. Some were home educated, others dipped in and out of local schools when the convoy laid up near towns, but many received their education for experience, community and survival. They learned to cook over open fires, wire up solar rigs, make clothes from scraps and fix wheels on the move. They were wild and free, but also vulnerable, often caught between police hostility, media scorn, and an itinerant life that made long-term friendships difficult. Some remember it as a golden time of freedom and imagination and connection. Others carry scars of instability, exposure, or feeling rootless when the roads emptied and the movement fractured. Traveller fashion. The New Age traveller way of life was becoming established, and with that came a distinctive look, born of practicality and a sense of rebellion. Dreadlocks became a common sight among many travellers during the late 1970s and 80s, especially as the culture evolved from psychedelic counterculture into a more anarcho-punk and post-punk phase. For many, dreads weren't just a hairstyle, they were a symbol of resistance, identity and self-reliance, influenced by Rastafarianism, punk rebellion, and general rejection of mainstream grooming norms. Dreadlocks also served a practical purpose. They were low maintenance and could be maintained without access to showers, salons, or consistent water supply. Dreads often became part of the broader DIY aesthetic, combined with patched clothing, military coats, and boots, and were worn by both men and women, sometimes decorated with beads, cloth, or symbolic objects. They also sometimes helped signify tribal affiliations or friendship groups on the road. The convoy cut or convoy mullet became a common sight, shaved at the front, dreads at the back. Kids also adopted the mullet. However, the hairstyle also brought practical problems. Living communally, often in crowded buses, caravans, or squats, made lice and nits a frequent issue. While head lice can affect anyone, dreadlocks, due to their density, made infestation hard to spot and much harder to treat. As one traveller recalled, once you had dreads, it was pretty much a case of live and let live. But if the lice got in and they stayed for the ride, you'd see people boiling combs, shaving their heads, or even cutting the whole thing off in despair. Dreadlocks were occasionally misunderstood or mocked by outsiders, with some tabloids portraying them as dirty or linked with drug use. But within the traveller scene, they were most often seen as a badge of honour, a sign of commitment, a way of stepping outside the system and embracing a different rhythm of life, even if it came with occasional itching. Mohawks, often called Mohicans in the UK scene, were another striking visual marker within segments of the traveller community, especially among those who came from or were influenced by punk and anarcho-punk subcultures. Towering, dyed, often sculpted with sugar water, soap, or PVA glue, these haircuts were a statement of defiance, not fashion. But punk-influenced travellers, a mohawk wasn't just about style, it was a walking rejection of authority, conformity and social expectation. On sites and festivals, mohawks were less common than dreads, but no less respected. They often signalled someone linked to the crash scene, squat networks or early sound system crews. Practicality was sometimes an issue. Keeping a mohawk stiff on the road wasn't easy, but the look endured. It was bold, tribal and unapologetic. Occasionally mocked in the press or by the locals, the mohawk was embraced within the scene as part of the broader tapestry of DIY identity, rebellion and personal expression. Para boots, military-issue black leather combat boots, became standard footwear across the traveller scene for the late 1970s onwards. Hard-wearing, cheap from surplus shops, and ideal for muddy sites or festival fields, they were practical armour for life on the road. Whether worn with ripped tights, patched trousers or skirts, they held up to miles of walking, site clearances, breakdown rescues and roadside repairs. But they came with a price. Airflow was non-existent, and the long days without access to proper washing facilities meant the para boots quickly became notorious for causing some of the smelliest feet imaginable. Stuffed with damp socks that were worn barefoot or left on for days, they created a perfect storm of sweat, fungal infections and ingrained odour. Many travellers joked that para boots should come with a health warning, or at least a bottle of tea tree oil. I'm pretty sure I got trench foot at one point. Despite the stink, they remained popular for decades, functional, symbolic and available for $5 at any Army-Navy store. They were part of an unofficial traveller uniform, just don't take them off in a crowded bus. By the late 1980s and into the early 1990s, tattoos were an increasingly common sight among travellers, not as fashion statements, but as marks of identity, belonging and rebellion. Before body art became mainstream, tattoos in the traveller scene were raw, DIY, and deeply personal. Ink was often hand-poked or done by self-taught tattooists, using makeshift gear on buses, squats or festival fields. Common designs included tribal swirls, anarchist symbols, spirals, suns, feathers, snakes, peace signs and band logos, especially from Crass, Hawkwind or local sound systems. Some were simply total rebellion and commitment. Special Brew and the infamous old pal of mine from Kingston days with "fuck you pigs" on his forehead. For many, a tattoo was a declaration of outsiderhood, a badge that marked you as part of the world, outside the 9 to 5, but it wasn't just about attitude. Tattoos could also be deeply spiritual or symbolic, tracing connections to the land, to specific festivals, to crews, lovers, losses or bad trips. Hygiene could be hit and miss, and infections weren't rare, but for many that was part of the rite. As one old hand put it, if it was too clean, it wouldn't feel real. Tattoos became a living map of the road, inked memories of places, politics and people who didn't stay in one place for long. Piercings were another form of self-expression. that took root in the traveller scene, especially from the punk-influenced late 1970s onwards. Nose rings, eye studs, lip piercings and multiple ear hoops were common, often done informally with sewing needles. Safety pins, ice cubes and a lot of gritted teeth. It was cheap, DIY body autonomy, with little concern for sterilisation beyond a swig of vodka or hot water. For many, piercings weren't just fashion, they were rituals of independence, a visible break from mainstream expectations. In squats, buses or around festival fires, getting a piercing could be a communal event, part rite of passage, part rebellion, part why the hell not statement. Occasionally infections or botched placements were shrugged off or fixed on the fly. Body jewellery was often improvised, bits of wire, safety pins or beads threaded through places they weren't meant to go. It wasn't polished or curated, but in that rough, unsanctioned way, piercings on the road were perfectly in tune with the traveller ethos. Dogs have long been loyal companions to travellers, offering both protection and companionship on the road. Among this nomadic community, certain breeds are especially popular due to their resilience, loyalty and adaptability to an outdoor lifestyle. Common breeds include lurchers, known for their speed and gentle nature, often seen stretched out by the fire or keeping watch from the door of a converted van. Jack Russells and Terriers are also favourites, affectionate, sturdy and protective. They thrive in close-knit traveller circles. Border Collies are also frequently found, prized for their intelligence and trainability, while mixed-breed rescue dogs are equally cherished, often joining the road for chance encounters or rehoming. These dogs typically share a strong bond with their owners, spending most of their lives outdoors and travelling. They are a familiar and beloved presence at sites, festivals and on the country lanes across the UK and beyond. Many travellers are devastated when they lose their hounds, as they are an integral part of the family. Whilst less often seen, mainly for logistical reasons, cats, chickens, goats, ferrets and other animals are often part of the extended traveller family.